I would just want to welcome everybody. It's really good that you managed to join us, and this is our second panel. I'm really glad that we kept doing this, and I hope we will do it for more weeks that are coming. Today we will be talking about incremental development of the product, and what is actually product owner's role in one Scrum team. What is happening there? So how do we create a product in an incremental approach, and what is the role of a product owner while doing all of that? I would like to welcome also our panelists. So I'm really glad that you guys also joined us. We have Apeksha. She's a CST. Hi. We have Petri. He is a product developer and Agile trainer as well. And we have Petri Heiramo. I think most of you met him already because I saw the list of participants. He is also a CST trainer that we work with a lot. Do you have anything, guys, that you would like to say for the beginning?
I'm excited being here. Thank you for inviting me over. Let's see what we get.
Cool. Okay. We have also, I don't know, a couple of you also attended last week. We prepared some questions for you as well, some polls that we will share, and we would like for you to participate. Some of those are just to see your opinion, so we can discuss more about that. And some of them are maybe true or false questions. We will see. So let's also test all of our knowledge. If you have any questions for us, you can use the chat box, and then we will see your questions and answer them during this panel. So I hope that everything is clear, and we can start. I see that people are already chatting here. So we can start with, let's start from the beginning. So basically, Apeksha, tell me, how do you see the product owner's role in one Scrum team? So what actually that person is doing, and maybe share some challenges that they confront every day.
Okay, so challenges, I have probably a long list of challenges they might face, but let me say about what a product owner is, in my opinion. A product owner, I would say, is like a CEO of a product, someone who kind of owns it, someone who is responsible for making sure that the product is successful in the market, and responsible for generating and maximizing not only the value for the end user, but also the value for business. So I see them as CEOs of products. What challenges they would face, I would say anything from time to making the decisions of when to make a release, something make available to the customers and the end users, to prioritizing, to how to help developers focus on the most important thing to work on right now. Mm-hmm. Of course, the list is endless, but just in short.
Yeah, and what would be the things, I don't know, Petri, maybe you can share, what would be the things that people often mislead when they're thinking about product owners? So maybe something that is happening in practice, product owner think that they should be doing those things, but maybe it's some other's responsibility, or...
I think the most common challenge people face being a product owner in organization is the fact that they often don't have sufficient amount of authority. So a lot of places, Michael James, one of the trainers, he is using the term team output owner to imply a person who is not a product owner. Actually, they don't own the product, but they are representing somebody higher up or somewhere further out who told them what to do, and they're basically just a team lead, telling and managing the team's work being done. So they are not product owners. And a lot of organizations don't actually know or have structures or ability or understanding to actually fully empower or sufficiently empower product owners. Now, there are situations, and a lot of organizations have this, that there are multiple teams and multiple product owners who have a relationship with one another. of some kind. And so how do you then coordinate that work? It's a relevant question without sacrificing or jeopardizing the ownership of a product owner within the product. And you know, if you have something like a component team, a back-end team or a front-end team or a testing team, the people who are product owners of those teams don't actually have a product to own. All they own is the work the team does. And in those cases, it's just impossible to provide independence to product owners sufficient to own the work. Anyway, so I think that is the biggest, most common problem that leads to a lot of people having a lot of trouble being product owners. And when they come to talk about product owner in Scrum, it feels alien to them, or it feels like, oh, I just can't do that.
Yeah. And Petri, you work a lot with the product. So basically you are, let's say, a product owner for the product that you use in your company. Would you say those are the challenges? What challenges do you face? Do you feel like you're owning the product, and do you have the authority to work with it? Or there are also some challenges that Petri and Apeksha mentioned?
Yeah, I would just for a second switch back to you know, what is the role of the product owner, you know, and when looking at the product life cycle and the roles in it, you see that, you know, there is someone called product manager, and then scope of work that product manager does, and then there is a product developer, and then there is some scope of work that product developer does, and then there is this you know, product owner role also there. So people might wonder, you know, who's doing what there? What is the job of the product owner, and what is the job of the product manager, etc., etc. So to me, you know, and I will use this wording that Melissa Perry told. You know, the product owner is a role that you play in a Scrum team, whereas the product manager is actually your, so to say, job description. This is what you do. You are a product manager, in fact, and then the product owner is a role that you play in certain setup. Here speaking of the Scrum teams. And to me, this is a very good analogy and very good, so to say, definition. So you take care of that product. As Apeksha said, you are the owner of the product. For me, that's the simplest explanation that there is, you know. So, and everything that is assumed in this is what you do or what you should do, you know. And I completely agree with Petri saying some of the, or maybe most common challenges that, you know, being a product owner and still not having this, so to say, the full stake in it, or you know, the full empowerment in it. And I really agree there. That's a very, very common case. And I would say that you know, I prefer talking about how things should be, and then going toward it, than just stating the issues that there are, and also discussing how to address these issues. So this is one of the challenges. If we speak, what I see also as a challenge is quite often misunderstanding into what certain roles do in the Scrum. Regardless of the fact that how long the Scrum is here and the Agile is here, and the, you know, the Agile Manifesto is there for 19 years, you know, there are still some questions about who should be doing what, and quite often, you know, there are misunderstandings and wrong expectations from certain roles, which I would also call part of the challenges for the product owner. And also, you know, if you are working as now a product owner or a Scrum Master in a company that is actually trying to adopt the Agile way of working, that's the challenge itself, you know. So you're facing a cultural shift, or you're seeing people trying to do the cultural shift in their organization, but they're still not there. And this is a very difficult situation to be in, and also very interesting challenges that you have to face and to struggle in this setup. Yeah. So these are some of the challenges that I see.
Yeah, you mentioned something that reminded me. I would like to ask now one question to our attendees, just to find it. Yeah, so I will launch the polling now. So people I hope you will be seeing this and do participate, please. I think you see it. Do you guys also see it, panelists?
Yes.
Yeah.
So this is something that that I wanted to just to see how people think, and then we can comment on that. You can also vote, I think.
Yeah, I'm going to vote on that one.
Can you tell us the right answer?
Like right away?
No. Let's just wait a bit. So everybody gets to vote.
This is the mystery beginning.
Yeah, I'm waiting for the results. How do you show them?
Yeah, I will share with you. Just we are at 80% people voted, just to see if those who haven't will vote. Maybe they are like checking on internet what is the right answer. Is there a right answer?
The good thing is we can all say that, yeah, I had that one. That was my answer too,
Yeah.
regardless of what we actually put, because it's anonymous. So
Yeah.
it's quite safe.
Okay, I will end the polling now. We stayed at 80%. Okay, and then I will share the results with you all. Just tell me if you can see the results. Maybe
yeah.
I hope everybody sees the results. Okay, so what do you guys think? What was your answers? How would you comment on the results?
Okay,
I mean,
I'll be the.
Okay, you bite.
Yeah, I can be the icebreaker. So
Yeah.
you know, this might be a bit of a misleading, you know, the set of answers, you know, because you know, doing the right things and how was the second formulation? It was
Doing the things right.
doing the things right. Yeah. So you know, there is a question: what does doing the things right mean, actually? You know, and in a sense, you might say, well, that means that the product owners should say to the developers how they should be doing things and what they should be doing, which then excludes this answer from the correct set of answers. But then, you know, in a sense of, you know, pointing out and helping Scrum teams in general doing the things right in the right way and improving themselves, then it might also be the case. So it might be the case for the product owner. That's what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
So in a sense, you might say that whereas doing the right things definitely goes into the scope of the product owner, because this is the person that is deciding what the team should be spending their time on, so to say, to be banal. So in a sense, you know, the both might be the answer, but still that depends how you understand the offered answer. So that would be my take.
So I'm not sure, I might be able to clarify that, or at least say the way I understand it. I would say within the Scrum team, so if we just think inside that unit that we talk about these three roles, then certainly it's more about doing the right things, bringing that knowledge. What is the thing that the customers need? What is the thing that business needs? And letting the team to figure out what is the best way to enable that within the constraints. You know, but externally, if we think of stakeholders, then the value of the product owner is responsible of is a combination of having the right things and that they are done right. So they are accountable for that. But yeah.
And who is maybe more accountable for like the first thing, like doing the things right? Like,
The team.
Okay, who would be responsible then?
I mean, the team.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay.
I often do these 3 circles. Like the first one is doing the right things, which is product owner. And then I have the second one is doing the things right, which is the team. The third circle, don't you love Venn diagrams, right? The third circle is doing things fast or faster. And then I ask, who's responsible for that?
Mm-hmm.
And the answer, in my opinion, is the team as well. It's not the Scrum Master, but it's tempting to put the Scrum Master in there as well. But the team is actually responsible for improving their own work as well, not just doing things right, but getting better at doing things right. And Scrum Master is responsible for helping these 2 roles do all these 3 things over time. And so it's an additional thinking outside the box.
Yeah.
But in that kind of diagram, I always put the doing the right things to the product owner and the things right to the team.
Cool. We have a question. Maybe Apeksha, you can reflect on that. So Petri now mentioned what the Scrum Master is helping the team to do. So we have a question: how can a product owner help the Scrum Master?
Okay, so product owner can help the Scrum Master. If I had to answer in like one simple way, connecting to the previous dot that we had, was setting the expectations right for the team as well. Because the more the clarity, the more the transparency, the more is the capability of the team to pick up and understand the right thing and then deliver the right thing. So yes, creating the transparency and collaborating with the team, creating that stage and platform would in fact play a huge role in enabling the development team to build the right thing. And if I had to connect the dot to the polling question that we had, when we say a product owner is someone who is responsible for the success of the product, doing identifying the right things to do, because when you're talking about identifying the right thing is identifying the problem that we are trying to solve, and then letting the team build the right solution, because there could be multiple solutions for a given problem. So how would the product owner help the Scrum Master in this situation to enable the team is by creating that transparency and giving that freedom to the team to share ideas and see if they can influence the product owner as well.
Cool.
Yeah. Maybe if I can just jump in there. So, stepping out a bit from the definition of roles, but just going into the way of thinking of how the whole team could give more. I would say that Scrum Master and the product owners, they're sort of they form one, axis on which the whole team relies. So I would say that those 2 persons are actually there to help the team gives the most out of it. Each has their own roles, but still they have to be combined together in a good way so that they help the team each from their own angle, to support the team, So you might say that, traditionally Scrum Master is the one who is responsible for, stipulating or facilitating the Scrum events, and that the Scrum Master should be coached to the team, which is everything is okay, of course. But then product owner also has the role of showing the team how the things should work in a Scrum team. So in a sense, product owner is there also to show how the refinement or grooming process should look like, how the creation of user stories should look like. There are also those things that the product owner can facilitate or provide from his or her side in order to to help team work better and at the end put more to the market or to the customers.
Yeah, not just to be like set up the roles and this role must be doing this, but we can all contribute and all help. Yeah,
exactly.
This is an interesting question, because in fact I've actually never thought about that question personally. I have never previously consider how could the product owner help the Scrum Master per se as such. Because I've always seen the Scrum Master as the person who's helping the others, and that they should focus on what they're doing and get that done well, and the Scrum Master supporting. But I do recognize that there are some situations where, if you like, well, I'm going to go into an example. So a friend of mine is a really great Scrum trainer. So he knows all the Scrum stuff. He's doing a lot of trainings, and he was a product owner in one team. Remotely. So he was living in Seattle, and the team was in India. And they had a Scrum Master there. Because he was the most knowledgeable person in Scrum, he knew how to behave and how to interact with the team in the right way so that the Scrum Master didn't actually have to fight him. He helped the Scrum Master, he coached the Scrum Master through his experience. Now, that is not what usually product owners do. But it's just that in the product owner role, he was kind of an agile coach because he had the best skills in that regard. And I don't know if that doesn't sound to me like a real service of the role itself, but it's about the individual. So we should always remember that whenever we talk about Scrum, there is always a dimension: who is there? Who are the people? What skills do each of them have? And whoever can bring stuff into the play, they will bring so. A lot of times it can be one of the team members who is the Scrum coach or the most advanced Scrum expert. It may not be the Scrum Master always. Now, we often think that it is the Scrum Master, but everybody starts from somewhere. And I've been an initiate Scrum Master at some point, and it would have helped me a lot in my first experiments if there had been someone who knew Scrum and could have educated me. I was kind of the first one to study Scrum, so it fell on me to read and study and experiment and share the knowledge with others. But in many cases afterwards, I've seen the other way around. More experienced team members or Scrum product owners help the Scrum Masters along. But that's a special case, kinda.
Yeah.
Right. So if I just had to add one more point to it, we are talking about Scrum specifically over here. So let me first address that part, right? When we talk about a Scrum team, we are talking about a collaborative effort. Yes, a Scrum Master is a facilitator, but that does not mean that others should not collaborate. Leadership as a skill, because that's what's required over here, needs to be there in all the roles. There could be system leadership, there could be business leadership, and there would be technical leadership. But unless and until all of them collaborate, no matter how beautiful a team you have, no matter how great an idea you have, you can't succeed. And that holds true for whether you are working in a Scrum team or not. So we are looking for that collaborative effort. So it kind of rubs off through the whole team, right?
Yeah. I just to link to it, and I agree completely with both of you. I mean, the ultimate point is, that we all as a team, create more value. That's the goal for the product owner, but also for the team, also from the Scrum Master. And in that sense, it doesn't matter at the end, who did what in order to get there. The point is that we got there. So like, sitting in a boat and rowing. I mean, it doesn't matter if we all rowed for the same amount of time or whatever. It's just that we got at the end to the other bank of the river, or to the island, or wherever we went. So
cool.
Hey, Ivan.
Yep.
Could I take Biljana's question from the chat?
Yeah. I just wanted to reply to that. Yep.
Yeah.
So maybe you can take a question because panelists cannot see the questions. So just maybe we can read the question.
Yeah. Oh, so that was sent to all panelists. By the way, if you send questions in the chat, I think it would be good if you also put in all panelists and attendees, so it would be shared across everybody.
Sure.
But the question here is from Biljana: if the product owner is the owner of the team's output, as you said, and I think that's what I said, doesn't it imply its responsibility for the output? Furthermore, isn't he then responsible both for doing the right things and doing the things right? So kinda, there is, it just, how would I put this? We get into problems if the product owner tries to be an expert of everything, of both the doing the right things and the things right, which means, because what it leads to is that the team cannot own anything. And that has a psychological, very damaging impact on how the team behaves. If the product owner is doing both the product definition and the definition of how to implement it, it's boring. It's just, everybody gets, okay, I'm out of here. So you lose the engagement from the people. I mean, there's nothing for them to own and feel responsible for. So therefore, even though ultimately, externally, we often view the product owner as owning the whole value of the product, which is a combination of what the features are and how well they are done and working and how much is getting done. But within the Scrum team, we have to make sure that everybody can feel that they own something, that they contribute to something that makes a difference, because otherwise they will check out, and then you lose the people's contribution. You lose the brain. You may have the person in there, you may still have the hands typing, but there's no longer, the brain is no longer within the team. And so that's why we have this distinction between the right thing and the right way, so that we can distribute them and share it. Now, as Petri said, and Apeksha said, it's a collaborative effort. Absolutely, it is a collaborative effort. And there are moments where we help one another by challenging, supporting, asking questions, and so on. And I mean, I know product owners who have technical skills, and they ask questions that are technically relevant, like, help me understand why I don't understand how this is right. Help me understand. And they may point out something that the team didn't think of. On the other hand, the team often challenges the product owner. You know, are you sure this is what really, I don't see the data supporting this, or it doesn't feel right to me that we do this. You know, what is the data you work on? What is the impression? Why do you do this? So out of that collaboration, we get the right idea. So I hope that was a good clarification.
Yeah.
What I meant with that.
Yeah, so I would just like to introduce here a little bit of the lean terminology, you know. So I would say that the product owner is the one who is actually, if you can say, responsible for the outcome, not the output, you know, because, you know, the outcome is the thing that you want to achieve with your product. So for instance, you might want to achieve you know, a higher customer engagement, for instance, or you want to achieve the increase in new customers to your app or your product, you know, and this is the outcome that you want to achieve. Whereas the output is the way how you know, the vehicle, how you achieve this outcome. So the output for engaging more customers might be whatever small game in your app, you know, or some other engagement thing that you add to your app. And when you come to this, if you like, I mean, the owner of the output then is the whole team, because you know how the process should look like. The product owner should say to the team, this is the outcome that we want to achieve with our product, whatever, in next year, in next quarter, or whatever. And then, you know, the team should come up with what are the outcomes. You know, that shouldn't be the sole role of the product owner coming, you know, I mean, this can be, and this usually is, I'm aware of this, but, you know, it should be like the point of the collaboration and the Scrum is that, you know, the whole team develops the product, because as Petri said just a few minutes ago, is, you know, the collective brain is smarter than one brain, however that one brain is smart, you know. So the point would be that the product owners say, okay, this is the outcome that we want to achieve. We want to engage, or we want to have more customers to our app. And then the team coming to the solution or to the outcome, how we will manage this, you know. So in that sense, I would just a bit of rephrase that question, or give the answer to the question, you know.
Yeah, maybe we can share another poll. I have something that could also be interesting for the product owner's responsibility. So here is, you have multiple choice here. This is something that we talked about now, let's say. So let's see how people got it. So as I said, it's like multiple choices, so. I do like that there's not one not sure answer. So everybody has something. Okay, we will be ending the polling in a few seconds. So if you want to vote. Okay, I will be ending the polling now and sharing the results. Yeah. So you can see the results. Basically, this is, what do you think?
I think the third one was really sneaky. Because if it said maximizing the value of the work of the product development team, then it would be exactly right. Now, I don't think the point is to maximize the work the development team does. So that's a kind of a sneaky one. I don't know if others see the distinction there.
You guys, what do you think?
So here's my perception of it. When we are talking about maximizing the value, and another one is maximizing the work. And that kind of brings me to what Predrag was saying some time back. There is something called as outcome, and then there is something called as output. So you might have created tons of work for your team, you would have maximized it, but if you do not maximize the value, there might be just one feature that can generate that outcome that you're looking for. And you might have created hundreds and hundreds of features which are just useless. So that kind of, always outcome beats output. So that's what I would say.
Cool. Okay. We have just, let's see, I wanted to see one question here. Any relationship with product manager and product owner? Is Scrum there in Scrum there is no
project manager. So yeah, so it's a relation between project manager and a product owner.
Yeah.
But sometimes it kind of gets confusing. Is it a project manager? Is it a product manager? Is it which product? So maybe we want to get a little bit of clarification of that. Is it a product manager or a project manager there?
I think it's a project manager, because if I'm looking at the whole question, it says in Scrum there is no project manager, but if we're scaling, is there a, I guess it's a project manager, I would say. Yeah. Here is the clarification.
Okay. So anybody?
I'm looking for something to show. I'll share it once I find it.
And then
we specifically on that, but others you can start with your points.
Okay, I'm then while Petri is looking for things to show us, I will give my two cents on it. As said here, the Igor who asked the question said the Scrum doesn't recognize the project manager role. Because in Scrum the main assumption is that you have a team that is capable of doing everything that is needed for that product. So with that assumption, you really don't need anybody else except for these roles that Scrum recognizes. And now that it says when we are scaling, what happens, and it does change things. But I would also say that depending on where your product is in the life cycle, it also depends which roles you have and how does the product owner role look like. So, you know, you might imagine that at the beginning, when you're starting developing your product, that at that point the number of communication lines are pretty limited. So one man or woman, one product owner, can communicate with everybody regarding the product, with all stakeholders. Still, there are still no customers because the product is being developed. So he can also go and make interviews with the future customers, and you know, it's all something that one person can bear. But as your product meets the market, and you know, then number of communication lines start increasing. So you have customers, you have other stakeholders in your company, you know, so you have whatever, you know, finance department that are expecting some returns on their investment. You have some marketing guys who are planning some campaigns, and then, you know, the more product is mature, you know, the more communication lines you have, and then at one point, one person cannot hold all these communication lines, and you have to do something with the product owner role. So, and there are several things that you can do. To me, you know, going toward the feature team and being the product owner for a feature makes most sense, because this is how you limit the scope of one product owner, but you're letting that person being the product owner in its full extent, as Petri mentioned at the beginning regarding the limitations of the product owners meet. So by doing that, you actually enable that one person to do all the things that it should do. So, and then in that case, you don't need a project manager still. You're having everything, so to say, encapsulated in one team, and then this product owner can perform things, activities that generally project manager does. So, yeah.
So that's what I was going to show. This is so does this show up? Do you see this picture?
Yep.
So this is something that we've done on the course multiple times. So we listed out all the various kinds of things that project managers as a role typically would be responsible for. And then the different teams tried to figure out which of the Scrum roles would actually handle it. Would it be the product owner? Would it be the Scrum Master, the team? Or is it a thing that the Scrum is silent about, that someone may have to do if it's a valuable thing to do, but Scrum doesn't give us a guidance as to which of the roles does it? And as we can see, most of the things that project managers do on a big scale of things go to the product owner, and the small scale, that is the daily level and the weekly level of getting the things done, those definitely go to the team. Scrum Master gets very little of those things, in fact, as personal responsibilities. And then there's quite a surprising number of things that Scrum is actually silent about, and which are often organizational things or contractual or business relationship, which is something that Scrum stays completely out of. Now, in a team, you need to decide how you're going to deal with this. I have seen situations where this yellow stuff contains so much internal stuff, organization's internal stuff, that it just makes sense to have an actual product owner do it. But those project managers, so that there's a project manager doing those things, I feel that they should be subservient mostly to the product owner. So they're providing a service to the product owner by doing these things so that the product owner doesn't have to do it. I do remember a situation where it was the reverse, that the project manager was really owning the project organizationally, but that person was letting a product owner take ownership of the content of the work being done. Anyway, I don't know if that was helpful, but it certainly gives us a relationship. I don't see that we need a project manager, but we do need project management. And someone has to take care of those things if they are relevant in the context. So I'm going to stop sharing this. If anybody wants it, I can provide a link.
Cool.
Yep. Just to comment on one thing that Petri now inspired me. As you said, Petri, you know, let's say we don't need a project manager, but we need the project management. And I agree there. So, you know, when you're looking at the activities that are there to be done, you know, they have to be done regardless of whether you do it in a waterfall way or a agile way or whatever. So there are some activities that you simply have to do. I mean, you might choose the way how you do it, or when you do it, or how much time you dedicate to it, but most of the activities are still there. So, you know, by introducing Agile or introducing Scrum, you don't eliminate these things. I mean, you still have to do them. So in that sense, I completely agree. So there are some things, all those things on the list, or probably all of them have to be done, and someone has to do it, to do them. But, you know, it's just the question of how you, who is doing that, and as I said, up to which extent and at which point of time, and even how, you know, is also important, because you know, you might, there was one thing like reporting, so you might do reporting in different ways, into different depths, you know, sometimes, you know, probably you don't have to do all the reports that one can imagine. So you can just choose those that are really important, that give some value to the spectator or to stakeholders or to whoever.
Yeah. Okay,
quick comment to Jovan. Yes, it can get tricky. So you need to talk about it and be clear in this organization. How do we track progress against who does it, and have clear roles about it internally, even though, yes, Scrum is silent about it.
Yeah. Let's talk a bit about, we had a question also here about this incremental approach. So basically we talked about it, let's say we talked about it a bit. So could Apeksha, maybe you can start. What is this incremental approach that we are talking about versus traditional approach? How we deliver some products, and why do Scrum use it as it is, and what's in it for product owner? Maybe why would he deliver a product incrementally to the stakeholders?
Okay, so let me probably share a short story or probably experience. Let's say I go to a shopping mall, not right now, when things are good. Let's say I go to a shopping mall and I see a nice, beautiful dress that I like. What is the first thing that I would look at? What do you think?
Color.
The color, okay. So let's say I like the color. What is the next thing that I would look
Size. Is it gonna fit me? Is there any point?
So I'm looking at my functional needs, first of all. Would it really fit me? And why do I check that as the first thing? Because if I buy a dress without trying it out, without knowing what size that is, and if I take it back home, and then I realize that it does not really fit me, that's kind of increasing my costs. I want to make sure that I'm not investing too much in the places that I don't really need to. So that's the first thing I do. I go to a trials room, I try it out and see if it fits me. Does the color suit me? Is it in my budget? I take care of all of these things and then make a decision of whether I should buy a dress or not. That's exactly what a product owner would do. First, they want to figure out, are we building the right product? Are we building the right product for the right market? And then try to run experiments to figure out whether whatever we are building is really going to work out in the market. Are my assumptions right? So the whole idea is to validate your hypothesis. By creating and releasing smaller pieces of work, we want to actually release that into make it available to the people. Whether you release it or not is a different story, but you want to make sure that you are testing your assumptions and your hypothesis earlier in the game so that you can get continuous and frequent feedback. And that's the purpose. Why would a product owner? Of course, product owners are, as we say, they are the owners. They are the ones who are responsible for maximizing the value of the product. They are the ones who are responsible for making sure that the work is done, the right work is done, and we are generating the right business return on investment for it. So absolutely, as a product owner, I have a huge vested interest in doing incremental delivery. Not only that, my customers are able to see the product earlier in the game and they can actually start using it, and I can actually start getting return on investments way earlier. So why wouldn't I do it? So that's probably something that I would say in short for that question.
And do people are people used to it? Like the market, maybe here in Serbia, Peja, maybe you can talk about, because I believe that we have a lot of people from Serbia listening. Do people, like stakeholders, how do they react to that? Are they used to getting things in smaller pieces, or we know that there are things when you sign a contract and then give me this, and you must give me this in 2 years, and then if you give me this, I'm good. It depends. I'm not sure will I be happy, but I'm good with, because you gave me what I asked for.
Yeah.
Right.
No, sorry. I asked Peja because of the market here, just how the market here feels about it. Sorry, Apeksha.
But Apeksha, if you want to comment something, yeah.
Right. So I'll just say a couple of points. Absolutely. It is very important to understand what market what is your segment? Where exactly are you targeting? Who are you targeting? Because at the end of the day, you have to be very, very clear about who your end users are going to be and who your buyers are going to be. Yeah. And as a product owner, yes, absolutely, you want to make sure of that. And depending upon the type of market, well, absolutely, I cannot say specifically for Serbia, but here is something that I for sure know. Everyone cares for money. Everyone wants to keep a check on the investments that they're making, and they want to get the return on investment as beautifully and as much as possible and as early as possible. Yeah. So yeah, we can talk about in depth about how to do market segmentation and how to do customer segmentation, but the crux still remains same. We all people, we think of money, and well, there are some people who have a lot of money, like maybe Elon Musk, you know, who might not care so much, but I'm sure he cares too, to get that ROI.
Yeah. But
yeah, well, if you, you know, quite often there is, now if we step out from the one team environment and startup environment, and you imagine sitting in a corporation, in a company, you know, with whatever, a lot of people employed, a lot of customers out there in the market, you know, and then the management of this company. It's most likely that you will find people in the management of these companies, you will find people who are used to, you know, this big bang. You know, so what does that mean? Means what you described as, you know, you create the product, you finish it, you put it on market, you have a large campaign around it, you know, and it's, everything is fine, you know, stars and confetti and everything, you know, and your product is out there and the customers are happy and so on. But the thing is that it doesn't happen like that. I mean, you have the big campaign, but what happens with the product is a very big question. And as Apeksha pointed out, is that, you know, with this approach, the odds are on the side that you will miss something, you know, and that's the whole point with the incremental approach. You're trying to minimize the risk and you're trying to minimize the failure that you're making potentially, either by missing the customers or their exact needs, or, you know, their vision of their lives and and the products they would like to use. But apart from being used to this way of thinking, there is also another argument that is usually put on the table, and that is, you know, first, I want to have a big bang because I want to have a big campaign, and in the big campaign I want to have abundance of features that I can talk about. That's one argument. The second argument would be, you know, if I go with the incremental approach, then I'm actually revealing some of my cards to my competitors, you know, and if I'm putting a bit and a bit here and a bit there, then they will find out what I'm working on and they will, you know, be able to, whatever, deliver faster or do something else or whatever, you know, make a response to my moves on the market. And I would just like to reflect on that because to me, you know, I would say that these arguments are not actually there. The reason why I see it like that is, first thing, if we say, you know, okay, just let's think about who do you create this product for, or the reason why you're doing it. So first, you're working on it because you have some existing customers of yours that are already using your product. Second, you're doing it because you want to attract new customers to your product. And third, you might also be doing it because you want to position the market. So I mean, you can say that, you know, consequentially positioning on the market is actually you're doing it because you want to have more customers. But you might do some things just because, you know, creating certain image in the customer's eyes, in the future customers, not strictly related to the hard sales in this moment itself. So when you look at it like this, then we might argue, you know, okay, just for a second, think about the existing customers. So by having the incremental approach, you are actually giving them value more often with incremental approach than with a big bang approach. Obviously, I mean, if you're using my app and I want to introduce a new feature to the app, you would probably prefer to use it sooner than wait for some time and then have some bigger feature around it. Just imagine that we have the app like app for reading the news, you know, and then you imagine you want to introduce the video content in it so that you can not just read the news, but you can also see the news in the app, you know. And just imagine that me as a product owner, I have envisaged this new feature that not just that you can watch the feed that I provide to you, but you can also upload your videos and then become sort of a, you know, a viewer journalist, you know, so you can send some things that whatever you find interesting or something. And then over the top, not only that you can upload your video, but you can also edit it in my app, you know, so you can whatever trim it a bit or, you know, do something with the sound, etc., etc. So now, instead of having the possibility to view the news in the video, you will have to wait for me to create this upload feature and the trimming feature and lots of features that I have imagined. So you as existing customers, you would probably want to see the news in video first and then to wait for the video uploaded. You might not be using at all at the end of the day. And when this is the existing customers. When you're talking about the new customers or the prospect customers, and I would say it's connected to this, you know, having the big campaign to talk about a lot of features. It's also the false argument, because, you know, when you're talking to the people who are experts in the communication part, what they say is you only have one message to send. So you only have one message to communicate to the audience, you know. This has been shown as the most efficient way to communicate. So you don't want to talk about the possibility to see the news, to upload the news, to whatever, edit your video, etc., because you will confuse the people that are hearing your message. So what you want to do is actually you want to have one message, and this message has to be critical. So you have to find the thing that your customers will be most attached to. This brings us back to the incremental approach, because it doesn't matter whether you have put the upload video, view video, trim video, make audio in stereo or whatever. You know, the only thing that matters is the one thing that people really want most at that point of time. Mm-hmm. Which one is it? Well, probably you should use the incremental approach to find out which one is it, you know. So, and that is why, for me, there is actually, this is false argument and false discussion around it, because coming back to what Apeksha say, at the end of the day, you come to this, you know, you have invested some money into something that is under the high level of risk, so you don't know whether this money you'll get any return on your money, and you just said it because you want to have some, I don't know, you know, like you want to talk about the 5 things where no one actually can remember them or can get attached to them. So find one thing to, and I mean, this is something that if you look around yourself, and if you look at the companies that are successful in managing the product, you know, you will find exactly that. So finding one thing that is important to the customers and talking about these things and making a big thing of that one thing that you're discussing. Meaning that if you believe that the big thing for your customers is viewing the news in video, then you want to put this as a message. So I have the video viewing content in my news app, you know, so.
can I broaden the question or the answer? I wish I was able to do this live, but I have to share it. So what I want to show is take a broader view of the whole question. So it's not a choice of either incremental delivery or a big bang. It's a spectrum of choices that we constantly do in various things. So in one end of this spectrum, we have a world that is known and unchanging. There are situations like that. Like if we're building a bridge, I mean, the needs for bridges don't change from one day to another. The bridges are now very similar to what they were in Roman times 2,000 years ago. In that kind of world, we can make big decisions. Where do we build? The consequences of decisions are big too, because the bridges are costly. Cycles of learning are very long, could be decades, as we learn as a society where we need more bridges and how things change. On the other end of the spectrum, we have a world that is highly uncertain. Like we had that right now. We had, opinions about the coronavirus and its impact on the world changed in days, or if not in days, but in weeks. We had, I changed my mind from, it's not going to be big and just something that, oh my God, it's just going to be a storm. Within a week, I changed my mind completely on that disease and how should I respond to it. And in that kind of world, we want to make rapid decisions, short cycles of iteration, lots of small decisions, and we have different frameworks we can use interchangeably and in different circumstances along this spectrum. Waterfall is perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong as a control framework. There's nothing wrong with it. It is a very good framework when we can trust that the decisions we make are reliable and that we don't make a wrong decision. Scrum is really good in the middle of the ground when we can make some amounts of sensible commitments, but we can pretty much decide for 2 weeks or 3 weeks what we're going to do, and it still makes sense at the end of the 3 weeks. On the other hand, if we are working with a really new product and it's a startup, we want to use something that allows us to change direction even on a daily level if we need to, if we find something that we do. So these different frameworks should be used depending on the degree of uncertainty and the consequences of the change and decision. How long can we afford to wait to know the result? How quickly do we need to get? How big decision can we afford to make? And there's no absolute answer. It's always dependent on the context. And there was a question in the chat about this. Let me find that question. I'll stop sharing for a moment so I can see the chat. There was a question. Where was that question that can you please discuss a bit about situation where the team is creating a product that customer already ordered, which is a very common situation in consultancy. And I'll go back to my diagram. By the way, do you see my mouse as I go in the screen? Do you see the mouse?
Yeah.
So this is a situation where we have potentially, I'm not saying guaranteed, potentially a problem with a conceptual conflict here. The customer is seeing the world much more predictable for some reason or another. Whereas we recognize that it's much more changing, that the customer and the actual users may change their minds. And so we have a conflict between different ways of frameworks in relationship to the reality that we are facing. And we as developers may see that there's a lot of open items and that we may have to adjust a lot of things as we go, whereas the customers, decision makers, don't see the world the same way. And this is very common. 10 years ago, we always had this. Customers didn't know about Scrum. So we had to tell them, hey, have you ever had this problem that your customers change their mind as we work on this product? And that you will actually ultimately want something different than what we are delivering. And so we had to teach them how the frameworks that they used didn't work in the context of the world. And we then find a middle ground. Now, probably because we have a contract, we still have to deliver what we promised within the timeframes and the cost we delivered, but we can use Scrum within that framework to figure out how do we build it sensibly and learn and maybe change the contract and do change requests. I'm going to stop sharing that. But so whenever we think, and when I think personally, I think it's critical to understand the context before we start making judgment calls about what is the right thing. A lot of times when we talk about Scrum, we associate ourselves where we have the biggest pain often is where we don't recognize the world's changing nature and we use wrong frameworks for it. But that is not true for everyone. I mean, if you buy accounting software, you are buying a solution for a very well-known, well-defined problem. You don't innovate accounting. There may be different solutions to the UI, but you have to do it by the books as the government requires, or you're screwed. And any application that does it has to do exactly certain things, most of that stuff. So we are in a very predictable world. We can use much more plan-driven approaches. We can much more clearly define requirements up front and then deliver on those requirements. They are less likely to change. And the traditional management could work reasonably fine.
Yeah.
But then there's the other kind of software.
So yeah, I would like to add on that part. Absolutely. It is very, very important to understand the context in which we fall, the domain in which we are working before choosing a method or a framework that we decide to work on. However, the question that comes to, that came from the panel is, that came for the panel is incremental delivery. Do you need incremental delivery all the time? Can you have incremental delivery even with waterfall? Absolutely. Yeah. Why not? Right? So to hone in that question, why incremental delivery? Whether you do it using Scrum, whether you do it using Lean Startup, or whether you do it through your own way of doing it, you discover your own way of doing it. What is the real purpose behind that incremental delivery? And if I build on that example of accounting that you give, absolutely, you can change the way people work. There was a time when people used to use pen and paper to do that accounting, and today the whole world has changed. So incremental delivery can be used anywhere as long as we want to test our hypothesis. The whole purpose is to figure out the problem that we think is a problem. Is that even an existing problem for people? And that's when incremental delivery would help.
Yeah, we have a question regarding incremental delivery. Can we often enough to our customers with this approach?
That is one of the things that product owners struggle with or tackle with, and that they need to actually find out what is the right speed of innovation, what is the right speed of experimentation. I think a good example came from Salesforce.com. At one point, this is an old story, but when they went agile, they started delivering more of. I mean, they had the problem. They had one release per year. And that was the pain. It was always late and it was not working. So they wanted to go from that to more agile way of working. So they started using Scrum, and they started delivering continuous changes to the customers. And what they found out is the customers were previously saying, we don't get enough new stuff. And now they would say, oh, hold your horses. I mean, there's just too much coming our way. So what they did find is that about every 4 months is the right cadence, of right frequency of showing new features or delivering new features to customers. They can handle a greater change, but they had technical capability of doing changes, because people like bugs going away, but they may not like frequent new features or changes to features. Again, so you may have even different cycles for different parts of your product, but that's definitely a challenge for you to find out as a product owner. Experiment.
I see this, I understand this question a little bit different. So I understand that the worry is that, I mean, by having the incremental approach, you will not have enough things to show to your customers. So if the increment is that bit small, you know, then the customers might be not satisfied or might not even notice that you have done anything, you know. So if you know, now answering to this question that I put, you know, I would say that here the helpful concept is, you know, minimum marketable product or minimum marketable release. So you as a product person, you decide what is the increment that you want to put on the market, you know, because you should know your customers and you should understand what is something that they would be satisfied, they would see, you know, something with which you can play, or from where you can understand what are their needs that we have discussed, you know. So I agree. I mean, because that is, you know, the question how small increment can be. I mean, I don't know, probably, you know, like there is some atomic size of the increment, you know, but you know, you are the one who decides how big this increment is, you know, and it is the balance, and there is no exact answer, you know, as with the most questions when it comes to the product, you know, there is no something, as Apeksha said just a few minutes ago. I mean, you have to decide based on your market, your customers, their habits, the way how you train them to use your product, you know, and the things that they have, the expectations that they have regarding your product. So it's, you know, it's not just like, okay, this is the proper increment for your product and you should stick to it. There is no the answer as such. You as the product owner is the one who decides, and that's what makes this role, you know, both interesting and you know, tricky, is that you have to make decisions. And then, as it has been mentioned, as Petri mentioned, you know, it's you know, if you're working in a fast changing environment, making proper decision is even more hard, you know, so it's even harder. So, you know, and then, yeah, coming back to the need of the incremental approach.
Yeah. Because I was reading the question again, and another point of view came, what are the limits of, or challenges or dangers of doing incremental innovation? One of the things that people can fail when they do incremental innovation is that they focus on small changes and they do only small changes. And so the product is refined only in things that are easy or simple to do in short term. However, some innovation is transformational, and you're doing something entirely new. You're providing something great, big, and that may take a lot of time to do. And then you're making a big change. You're not just gradually asking for feedback and refining, but you're providing something entirely different. And in those cases, you may have to do bigger bets. And we can see that the world is working like that oftentimes. We often talk about the S curve of innovation, that we have a new innovation coming in, and then there's a rapid refinement of that innovation until we reach the potential of that innovation. And then someone comes up with a new innovation. And that provides a leap in performance, like from coal to electricity, or mechanical, from heat-based energy to electricity-based energy. And that was a leap in productivity and the society. Similarly, from landlines to mobile, from voice communication to IP-based, packet-switched mobile communication. Yeah. So that kind of transformational, sometimes product owners do need to make big bets and long-term investments for developing new areas in the products, which may require more. I mean, it doesn't invalidate the idea of iterating within that big leap, but, and actually you should be iterating strongly a lot, but particularly in those situations. But in terms of customer perception, you're not gradually building that thing, but you're building it, and then, da-da, here it is, and you show it to everybody, and then you hope that they like it. Of course, you try to do evidence and all of that, and then you make a big show of it. But in terms of, it's possible to do just the easy things with increment if you don't keep your minds on the bigger thing that you prioritize. That's what I was going to say. I love you.
Yeah. Anything to add, Petri? I think you wanted to.
I just I'm glad that at the end I just had the I just wanted to comment to what Petri said, but at the end, he actually took my words and said, actually, you have to iterate also inside this big bet, you know. So that was my, I was prepared, I've been preparing for this comment, and then he pointed out, so that was it.
Cool. We have, I saw we skipped some questions, but we will be answering all the questions that we left after the panel, just so we cover more topics. So some of the questions will be answered afterwards. I will send them with email or on our Match About app. Let's talk a little bit about product design and lean techniques. What do you think? Let's talk so we are now talking about, okay, incremental approach in creating a product, in delivering the product, but let's talk about a bit about lean techniques and that
what
stuff.
Are the lean techniques?
Yeah, what are they?
Because we've been talking about lean all the time. Lean and agile are almost synonymous in and of themselves. It just come from two different things, but they are talking about the same problem fundamentally. So again, I have to come back to the question: what are the lean techniques that we haven't touched them yet?
Did we touch them all? Yeah, I think.
Well, I don't know, but in you know, it comes to this question, and I agree there with both Apeksha and Petri. You know, it's all about the context that you have. So all these things that we have been talking about, you know, the incremental approach and early testing, and you know, speaking to the customers themselves, you know, finding out what the problem is. Apeksha mentioned at one point of time. Sometimes we have the idea that we are solving the problem to the customers, whereas we don't actually. So we are trying to solve the completely wrong problem. You know, we're trying to solve something that they don't feel as an issue. You know, these are all things that come down under lean techniques, if that can be said. But the thing is that, you know, I don't know, somehow in forums like this, you know, I assume that you know, we are all flying in a stormy weather, you know. So, and then we are trying, you know, to find the route that will cost us the least energy, you know. So, but if we're building the bridge, then probably most of these things, you know, at least can be stretched, so to say, or unnecessary, you know. So, and when you're flying in a stormy weather, you need to test, you need to see where you're going to find out, you know, what is the problem and what your customers think about it. So one of the things that differs significantly between, you know, whether you're using the traditional techniques or some techniques that fall under the lean way of doing things, is how you approach the finding of the problem that you're solving. How do you approach the finding what your customers think about your product, you know? So traditionally you would hire the agency to make some sort of a quantitative or qualitative research, you know, to create focus groups, and then you would make a brief for that agency. They would make an inquiry, they would pick up customers, they would talk to the customers, and then they would come back with analysis of the findings that they have. I mean, lean is actually supporting something different. That is that you as a product person goes out and talk to your customers. And I really find the value in it, you know. So I'm not saying that the other things don't make sense and that they cannot be used. There are some things, you know, sometimes you have to do the quantitative research, you know, so some things you have to try on a larger scale, you know. But if you're it comes down again to the context that you have, you know. So if you're trying to find out what people think and what they are worrying about and how they're using some things and in which situations they are you know, refraining themselves from using your product, then I would say it's much useful that you personally talk to those people than engaging someone else to talk to some people, you know. So that is just a thought around this.
Apeksha.
So yeah, sure. If I had to say, when this question was coming, I was thinking about lean. As in, this question keeps coming. Okay, what exactly is lean? Is it like is this a way of work? Yes, it's of course as close to agile as it gets, because that's where the roots started, the initial ones that we saw. But I think when you're talking about lean techniques, lean technique is very, very different from lean as individual way of working. One of the ways of being agile. Yes, it could be talked about in two different ways. That's my perception. One, are you building the right product, and are you building the right product in the right way? Lean kind of talks from both of those perspectives. We talk about maximizing the ROI as a product owner. We talk about reducing your cost of production, making sure that your system is efficient enough, and keeping your system so neat and lean and clean that you focus only on delivering the right value. And talking from the Agile principles perspective of building the right product, one of the principles that just popped into my mind when that question came was maximizing the amount of work not done. That's lean. And generating the value out of it. So it depends upon the approach that we think what a lean technique would be. That's what I would say.
Cool. Thanks. What about when we do things? So we had a question, and we asked also that question to attendees regarding, so we are building these products and how to manage to do everything. You know, we are now talking about different features, different increments. So of course there is a question of prioritization. So I wanted to just talk a bit about that. So it's a tough one, because everybody, I think, well, I'm struggling with prioritization and using different things, how to prioritize stuff in the backlog or in my work. So what do you use as some, maybe we should ask first the attendees, what do they use when they prioritize their tasks? So I mentioned some of the techniques that could be used while prioritizing. So let's launch a polling, and then we can comment on that, and you can share what you use, maybe some different. I just mentioned some of them. I hope you're seeing this, yeah.
I would have definitely loved multiple options over there.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
agree.
I know. There are a limited number of these are just some that came up to my mind. Of course, there is other, so we can talk about other as well. It's a pretty much tie so far. I invite you all to vote. So far, we have 50% of people voted. Okay, if you want to vote. Okay, I will be ending the polling now, and then we can talk about it. Okay, so here are the results. So I can see that high, medium, low technique is pretty common, often used. So what do you think? What do you think about this? What techniques do you use when you prioritize your tasks? Anybody wants to share?
This is one of those things where all I can say is it just depends.
Depends, okay.
Because and the multiple choice would have been all those things that listed could be part of that decision leading up to the prioritization. But quite often it's just bloody dependencies. I have to do that before I can do that, and I want to do that too. And so it's just a combination of all of those things. And sometimes it's just urgency. Sometimes just, I have to do it, or someone's going to get hurt, or we lose, or it's a government, we're out of business if we don't do that. And that's exactly the problem product owners are facing. And that's why prioritization is so difficult, because there's so many different reasons to prioritize things over. And it's not necessarily the priority that is the biggest problem. It's just we have limited time to do it and limited timelines to do it. And so often urgent things beat important things. And then there's a tension between, all the things that we're doing, very busy all the time, but we're not getting the important bits moving forward because we're fighting the fires. And I understand that it's painful. And I suppose that's why it's so important to talk about it. Which are the different ways in which we do it in the context.
Anybody wants to add something?
Yes, sure. So I absolutely agree with what Petri said here. Is it depends, absolutely it depends. And it's just not one technique that you use. You kind of do a mixture of a lot of those things to figure out what's the most important thing to do right now. And I use a host and bunch of techniques there. First, there could be a Kano analysis, or there could be a Moscow, there could be cost of delay, all of those. But it again depends upon what is it that I'm trying to get out of it. So I use some of the techniques. I use risk dimensions, or as we say, cost of delay. I will use some, that I would use to see what is my cost of not delivering this feature right now. If that's what the decision I have to make. If I have to make a decision on the fact that can my product survive without this functionality, the type of decision-making method or a model that I would use is probably can analysis. Is it really so important right now? Can my product survive without it? Or what is the opportunity that I'm going to get if I deliver this feature into the market today? So I use an opportunity metrics over there. And if it's just plain dependencies, is there a way of dealing with these dependencies right now? So it's absolutely a combination of all of those. And at the end of the day, we try to, I would rather myself try to figure out the what and the how part to achieve that value that I'm trying to give at the end of the sprint.
Cool. Yeah, it's a tough one. I know.
Yeah, I would just add, I mean, to me, it's not that much of a technique that you're using for prioritizing things. I mean, you do have to prioritize. So the technique that you're using will probably depend, as Apeksha said. I mean, it will depend on what you are trying to prioritize. Are you trying to prioritize the things on your roadmap for the next year, or you are trying to prioritize things that you are doing in this month or quarter, or you are prioritizing your backlog for the next sprint? So, and you'll be using different techniques. I think, I mean, it's good to have like a comprehensive list of techniques. It's good to try them all, or as many as you want, and to see what works with you. And also what I like doing is, how to say, not taking them as a sort of a, how do they say, they inscribed in the stone. Let's say that is the expression, I'm not sure. So it's not something that is fixed, it's there to give you the thinking about the prioritization. So, at some points I've been using the weighted shortest job first, and then we manipulated with it. So we actually adjusted it to the needs that we have. So the thing with it is, when you're adjusting, you have to stick to it at least for some time, because if you just keep adjusting your way of prioritizing, then it becomes, it's incomparable, and then it probably leads you to making a not optimal decision at one point of time. But the thing is that you shouldn't be looking at it as something that you should do it just, there is only one way of doing it. So I believe you should adjust it per your needs. And as I said, I mean, you have to stick to it at least for some time just to see the effects of it. And then which one you'll be using at which point of time and in which moment, it really depends on you after all, and where you feel comfortable and where you feel that they are, you know, giving you what you need. So
cool. Okay, Peshka, you wanted to add something? Okay, I saw that you unmuted your mic, so that's why I'm asking. Okay, I'm wondering, should we go to, I saw a question regarding the exposing and testing things with the clients. So that is something that we did a lot with Peja, me personally. So how to test things with the clients, how to maybe give them something in order to get feedback in regards to creating the product till its perfection. So there was a question, maybe we can refer to that just to see where it is. Maybe you can share, yeah, you talked about testing the product. Can you mention some good practices for testing the product with customers?
okay, I can at least I can start with it. So as I've been mentioning, I really see benefits in working with your end customers directly. So if you would be asking me how to do the testing and what to do, I would say go out in the field, find your users, and show them what you're working on. So now the way how you'll be doing it, again, it depends. I mean, we did it with like paper mock-upping. We did so you have just a piece of paper where you drew something, you know, your future product. We did with a different sort of mock-ups. So if we are talking about the future products, so you create like living mock-up, not doing anything else but just showing what you want to show, you know. So there are different techniques exactly how to do it, but the most important thing is that you sit with your customers and you talk to them. So you might use a one-on-one interview. You might also use the help of the video recording, and then also part of the team listening to what one guy is asking your customers. So there are different ways of doing it, but to me that is the most important thing, that you find your customers and you sit and discuss with them. Why? Because this is how you extract most information from it. And this is why when I've been mentioning engaging someone to do the research for you, you know, I've been participating in these sort of researches, and regardless of how much effort you put into creating the brief for the agency, and you work with them on the questionnaire for the customers, and then even if in a focus group you sit behind the glass and then giving the instructions to the person who is directly speaking to the customers, it's never that fruitful as when you're talking to your customers, or someone from your team is talking to customers and you're listening back in the back room. And that is something that I would definitely vote for. So go to the customers, talk to them. Usually people then ask, okay, but how many customers do I have to ask? You know, what is the enough number of customers? I cannot speak to 100 customers. And it depends what you want to discover. So if you want to discover the big trends in how customers behave and how they see your product, how they use it, I mean, 5 customers is quite enough. Because when you're talking after the third one, you see the trends. You know, you see where they're getting stuck with your UX. You see the problems they're finding with your product. You see that they are not interested, or that they are interested in some part of your product. And you know, after the 5th one, you can just see the repetition of the findings that you already have. To me, it's more useful to do, to ask to talk to 5 customers than to, repair something or adjust something to your product, and then to talk again to another 5 customers, etc., than to have one big research where someone is, questioning. Asking questions to 100 or 1,000 of people. So that would be my take.
Absolutely. I mean, the best way of understanding whether whatever we are building is going to be used or not is actually to go and ask the people who are going to use it. And yes, there could be so many different techniques that we can use. As some of you said, we can take surveys, we can do polling. We can actually, one of the very good ways that I believe is to do a little bit of a job shadow. See, the idea is to understand not that we are going to sell a product to this person or they're going to use the product. The idea is to figure out what problems are they facing today, what are their pains right now, and that would definitely help me figure out whether the direction in which we are going is right or not. So yes, there are tons and tons of techniques that we can use, but the most important thing is to understand the end user's perspective, or the buyer's perspective, depending upon whom you are building that product for. So one, identify whom you're building the product for. 2, understand their pain points, and then I would rather build on top of that.
Yeah.
And just to reflect, I see the additional question here among the participants. So it's about the users using your product and testing it. And I mean, it really doesn't matter what it doesn't matter what you want to show them. If you want to see how they're using it, give them your product to test it. And again, you can't achieve more value but looking at the person using your product. So that there is a technique called talking out loud, where you actually push your customer while using your product to state out what they are thinking about. So if at one point they have stopped and looking for something, then you say, okay, can you please tell me what you're thinking about? What are you looking for, etc., etc. And that's the way how you extract information from them. It doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter whether you are creating a new product that doesn't exist and you're testing the just the concept, or you have a living product and then you're testing how it's working or whether customers are using and how they are using it. So to me there is no difference. The approach I would use the approach that I've described. So directly communicating with customers.
I'd like to add one aspect, which is even earlier than where you get to, is how do we get people to try the product in the first place? And I do sympathize with that because, I'm overloaded with a lot of things that I want to do. And if someone came to me asking, hey, Petri, would you try this thing out? And would you like to show me how you would do this thing? I would be very tempted to say, I'm sorry, no. And that's a barrier that, of course, you have to overcome some way. And there's been some discussions about with product owners that I've had. But I would generally start that question like, how can I make whatever I want to people to do as painless and as easy to do as possible for them so that I can pick their interest? Even if they potentially would be interested, I would like to reduce the barrier. So and sort of make it as easy and natural for them. Like if you send me an email asking, could you use this product, click this link and do this thing, there's a high barrier for me to actually do it. And it's very unlikely that I would ever do it. But if there was a way that you could come to me or show me, and connect with me on things that I'm interested in, finding the right people, obviously, then I might get easier to do it. It might be easier for me to do it. And so and there's no, I don't have any answer for this question. I just say I sympathize. I understand that barrier. And that is one of the biggest challenges to get over. Once you have someone's attention, then of course it's easier from there. But that getting attention is a challenge.
Yeah. But we can manage to, as Peja mentioned, we can manage to have some one-on-one talks, and then, you know, it's different if I send you maybe something, could you please tell me what you think, and if you have someone who will willingly sit down with you and then started communicating what he or she likes in the product, which Peja mentioned as some of the things that we can do. One-on-one, talking out loud and that stuff. But I understand your aspect, Petri, when it comes to it.
Yeah, I remember some conversations I've had with Marco about MatchAbout, for example. So yes, that is a common conversation.
Yeah. Okay, we are almost 15 minutes out of our time. There are some unanswered questions, but let's reflect on them afterwards with email or something like that. Also, we covered some of the topics. As we talked, we wouldn't be able to cover all of them, but we covered several of them. There was estimation that we also talked about, but let's leave it for, because next week we will have something regarding estimation, another panel. So let's leave it there so people can join us and talk more about estimation and planning and that stuff, so we don't hurry up things now. Do you guys have anything, sorry guys, not guys, but do you, Apeksha and Peja and Petri, have something additional to add, maybe that we didn't cover and it's really important that to say? Or you were...
I mean,
Okay.
we haven't covered so many things, you know, so this is just a little chat, you know, over tea, you know, something. So
we can do in hour and a half.
Exactly.
Maybe we have not even scratched the surface, but because I think some of the questions that we discussed were like some of the things that we see that people struggle day in and day out, and maybe not even all of them, just a few of them.
Yeah,
we were useful.
I love this aspect about life, that it's all open, and you know, over these years, I actually value the fact that I may not be an expert in one thing, or I'm not really good at something, but I have a broad knowledge of a lot of things, and that helps me whenever I go to something. I may not have a precise ready solution, but I have a lot of questions and viewpoints to bring into that conversation. And you know, as a coach, maybe that is more important than having a solution. In fact, is that broad mindset. And as an agilist, because we are facing the whole complexity of the world, we have projects that are quite well understood, and we can use very traditional techniques in a lot of the situations. And we have the other extreme at the same time. And it can be partially in the same project at the same time. And so having that breadth of alternatives and ideas is crucially valuable. And that's why I do recommend people listening to things like this, but also doing their own research, reading books. The more you can do that, the better off you are. You build this palette of options and ideas. The sad thing is, maybe 90% of all that learning goes to waste because you never need those ideas. The problem is you just don't know which 90%. And so you need to be prepared. But it's a journey. It's more about the journey than the destination.
Absolutely. I would just add to Petri, you say there are so many options, there are so many ideas. So let's start experimenting. That's the only way to move forward. Yeah,
I agree. I was just rambling some thoughts around my head, and I think that is the crucial thing, what you just said. I mean, that is, you know, just try things. I mean, you know, because if you're not trying, you're not moving anywhere. So you just have to be brave and to try them, and that will lead you somewhere, you know. So, and in the meantime, you correct your things along the way, and that's it.
One of the things that I'm struggling with is the competition between perfection and doing something and moving forward, because it is tempting to try to make perfect solutions in one go. And you know, some of us are more like that, some of us are less like that, but I think all of us have some barrier for experimentation because we don't want to fail. It feels uncomfortable. But failure isn't or things not going as you planned shouldn't be considered a failure. It should be, oh, I learned something interesting or something new that I didn't think of before. I'm just to share, just a personal, I've been deathly scared about everything online, all these webinars and all the online trainings, and the world is changing with the corona. I'm forced to try things out. It's scary. I have to enter an area where I'm not comfortable. And I have a hunch that I will learn more about training and online in these next 3 months than I have ever learned in my 48 previous years. And not because I chose to do it, because I had to.
Yeah.
But I'll be better off after this.
That's why we try, and then we see what could be better.
Yeah, absolutely. And if I had to say a couple of things on my thought process, yes, it's never easy. Absolutely, the times that we are in are extremely uncertain. We keep hearing about VUCA these days, and we actually are living that. We are actually phasing through. It's not going to be easy. But here's another thought. And that's what I at least I try to live by. And I strongly believe in this. Knowledge, no matter how much we have, experience is what trumps it. Unless and until we experiment, we are never going to understand whether that was meant to or not, whether that was going to work or not. And from a product owner's perspective, that is the risk, that is a calculated risk that probably they take when they are embarking on this journey. It's a risk, it's an experiment. It's trying to assume things that we feel is going on around us and trying to work in that environment. So experimentation and learning from this experimentation, and keeping in mind that we are running an experiment and we are not moving in the direction of failure. We are moving in the direction of an experiment. It's a hypothesis. That's what it is.
Cool. Thank you for this lovely words. And I would really like to thank you all for joining us, for sharing your thoughts, your ideas, and your knowledge. I know you traveled so far to come to join us here. Petri, you wanted to say something, I see.
Yes. Thank you most to all of you who attended. You made this thing. Remember, I mean, it would be much less interesting to be here talking about the things if you weren't there. So thank you everyone for coming over, and let's hope we see each other.
Yeah, and
again.
thank you. Yeah, thank you for the questions. We really had a lot of questions. Thank you for them, and I hope we managed to answer some of them and help you with your further work.
I just like to say thank you to all the guys that have been attendees here and that really spend their time participating here and listening to us, and still being here after the almost 2 hours. So thank you very much, guys.
Cool.
Thank you, and please stay safe.
Yeah, stay safe, you all. We will be sharing the recording of this, so you can, if you miss something, you can watch again, and hope we will talk all together soon.
Bye.
Bye. Bye, everybody.
Take care.